Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I wanted to talk about the last few days here of total accumulated snowfall, because in the forecast I produced that came out early Thursday morning, we did pretty well with a few things, but we missed on some stuff, and we got to make sure we learn why we missed that. Some of the things we picked up on, of course, we nailed the snowfall amounts that were parts of Ohio all the way to Maine. There was a lot of forecast agreement in that, and I felt pretty confident. We also picked up on the heavier snowfall amounts through parts of really North and South Dakota, getting all the way through parts of northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. We even picked up pretty well on the back side of this, bringing in some heavier snows here in the parts of Iowa. Where we missed was right in through this area. Now remember, we were watching one shortwave trough that was kind of oriented like this and a second one that was down here. We knew they were going to phase together and hit the northeast. One of the things that I really missed out on, though, was how much warm air was going to come out ahead of this. And this southern trough was going to dominate things until this system got into the Ohio River Valley. And so that was really the case. And so what we ended up seeing was some rain moving into this area initially. And I called for 2 to 5 inches of snow in this area with some heavier amounts, maybe in parts over there by St. Louis. And I'll be honest, because these two troughs, this one here to the north and one to the south, didn't phase in time, we just didn't get it. So this was a valuable lesson for me to learn. And I just wanted to kind of own up here to the missed forecast. But certainly after the cold air came in on the back side of this, we saw some snow that got pretty far to the south down here and further to the south as the front draped through the very southern part of the U.S. We even saw quite a bit of severe weather, including some nasty storms in parts of Louisiana, several of those storms actually producing tornadoes, causing some major damage. So I wanted to kind of just show you what we were looking at in terms of some forecast verification. Now, as we got through the day on Sunday, this is sun up to sundown. You can see the first system leaving over there on the northeast. That was on Sunday. Look at all the snow that kind of remains still in the background here, but it's this strong northerly flow that was producing these just absolutely gorgeous lake effect snow bands moving through parts of Michigan, even then to Indiana and Illinois, and then parts of Wisconsin. Also, a little vortex kind of snuck its way through on the back side of this, bringing some light snow to parts of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois throughout the day on Sunday. So those folks at least got a shot at it there. But this is really kind of the telltale signature of where we're going with this forecast pattern. We need to be looking out for some flow out of the Hudson Bay over the coming days. Now, what's dominating our pattern? Right now, it's not the MJO, it's not El Nino, it's the Pacific jet stream and this. This is a piece of the polar vortex. The polar vortex is disrupted. It is right now split, and it's that piece sitting over the Hudson Bay that's going to dominate our flow pattern in the coming days. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to animate for you the 500 millibar trough ridge pattern taking you out through the next 15 days. And we really just see the establishment, the dominance of this main trough feature sitting over the Hudson Bay until we get all the way out to the beginning of February. Now let's diagnose that a little bit closer by taking a look at these two maps kind of paired together. As we look out over the next 10 days especially, I want to talk about the main features here. We're going into what's called a positive P&A pattern, which means we're going to have a ridge sitting up out west and this broad multifaceted trough feature that's going to be stretching from the Hudson Bay through the south and southern states and then at times over the east coast as well. Now, what am I watching out for? Well, home base is kind of right here. This is where the main trough center will be. We will see multiple little short waves that kind of come through it here. You're going to see one of these coming in this weekend that'll swing through the northern tier of states and then head on off to the northeast. We'll actually see a couple of pieces of this shortwave here, one of which will emerge on Monday into Tuesday into the middle part of the country and race on off to the northeast. So a storm system coming through middle of the section of the country early this week. And we'll also see deeper trough features kind of hanging out down here in the Gulf Coast, running up the east coast. And that's something I'm watching on the 27th and 28th. Because of that, what do we see? Well, because the jet stream goes up towards Alaska, west coast is relatively dry. Because we'll see multiple clippers, so you can see that this storm track is evident in kind of the wetter than average conditions. We have that system coming through Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in through here, meeting in the northeast. And then we're watching here on the 27th and 28th, the feature coming out of the Gulf. And that's why over the next 15 days, we pick up on this wetter pattern in this region where everything kind of comes together. But don't forget, we got some clippers coming through the northern plains. Now, with each one of these systems, we will see very, very sharp temperature gradients, which means the temperatures are going to switch over quickly. And I'm also seeing a lot of very strong winds with them as well. But before I get into that short-term forecast, I at least want to answer a question I got asked here multiple times. Is the cold air here to stay through February? So the latest long-range run taking us to the beginning of February from the European ensemble does keep that cold air tucked into place here. There's a problem, though, and the problem is the dominance of this ridge feature sitting over Alaska. Now, because of that ridge feature, what we end up doing is we end up getting the cold air that's tucked away at the North Pole and the northern part of Canada here to kind of push back in this direction. If we can bring in a much more dominant ridge here, that will allow us to bring that cold air across the Great Lakes more often as we get into February. We're certainly going to be seeing this throughout the end of January, but as we get into February, we can reorient this trough and bring it into the northeast. As it stands, it looks like the jet stream tries to go zonal here, although we might just be seeing the European ensemble averaging out the flow. It might be a period of lower predictability here in terms of the flow of the jet stream once we get into February. But let's see what that means in terms of temperatures. And I just want to play this one out for you, and this is what I want you to pay attention to. You will see multiple pulses of cold air as I walk you through the next 15 days. We're certainly starting off Monday with some colder air. You'll see a system coming through at the beginning. There it is, warming things up. But look at the cold air coming in behind it for the weekend. And then just multiple pulses of cold air after that. It looks as though by the time we start February, though, we kind of get into a pattern that maybe tries to keep a lot of that cold air tucked up here in the northern tier states and in Canada. But this is maybe just the ensemble models washing out the more dominant features that may evolve as we get into February. So maybe moving into a little bit of less uncertain forecast time period as we get into February. Certainly until then, you see this multiple low pressure systems with big cold air that comes in behind it. So get ready. We're going to be on a roller coaster ride of temperatures moving forward. Now, starting off the day on Monday morning, high pressure dominates the Great Lakes. So we saw that lake effect snow coming in through this area. High pressure starts off on Monday, and what we do see is a very strong pressure gradient on both sides of it. So remember all the snow we just had in this area? We're going to be blowing that snow around to start off the day on Monday, and the same thing here for the Northeast. Meanwhile, in the middle there, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, we are going to be seeing much lighter winds. But watch what happens as I animate this forward. Let's kind of pinpoint these next few systems. Throughout the day on Monday, I'm going to be watching the high plains. Let's play that again here. Specifically, I'm going to be watching Wyoming, Colorado, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, and then up into Minnesota. As our next system begins to emerge right in through here, we're going to be starting off in this area with the potential for some lighter snow in the day on Monday into early Tuesday morning. Now that system that I just kind of circled there for us is going to be moving into the central part of the United States over toward the Corn Belt by the time I get into Tuesday afternoon, there it is, and then into Wednesday morning. So what is this going to do? We're going to have a lot of cold air on the backside, so I'm seeing snow certainly in this area, okay? My big question is, as high pressure dominates the East Coast, do we bring enough warm air out ahead of this, and some warm air is coming, that we could overrun some cooler air at the surface? And if that happens, I'm watching this area carefully as we get into middle of the week here. This is valid Tuesday night to Wednesday morning for the possibility of some mixed precipitation. So I'm talking about maybe some freezing rain in here. But the one thing we do know is that as this system goes past Missouri into Illinois, look at the colder air wrapping around quickly in the backside. Notice here through parts of Illinois getting into Missouri, Arkansas, and even down into Texas, there's so much cold air on the backside of this coming in so quickly that we may have a changeover there. Now, meanwhile, morning on Wednesday, getting into Wednesday afternoon, look at the heavier rainfall amounts in the lower Mississippi River Valley moving over toward the southeast. But again, see that colder air and its influence here, switching things over to snow. So this is system number one, beginning on Monday, out in the high plains, getting through the Midwest here, Tuesday, Wednesday, into Thursday, and then off to the northeast by midday Thursday. High pressure comes in, cold, windy conditions after this system comes through. Here comes the next one. I'm watching on Friday for the development of a clipper coming into Montana, North and South Dakota, parts of Wyoming. See it there? This is midday Friday. The clipper is kind of centered there in Nebraska, spreading snow through parts of South and North Dakota, but then into Iowa, And then eventually, as we get into Friday evening, into Saturday morning, maybe into parts of Illinois, Indiana, and in parts of kind of more of the Great Lakes states. By the way, I should have mentioned, after each one of these systems comes through, we will be seeing lots of lake effect snow. Just to make sure I throw that one in there. So those folks that get that lake effect snow know it's coming in several waves. So that's system number 2. Starting this weekend. Again, big area of high pressure comes in behind that, cold air. And look at this. This is Saturday evening. We may have enough cold air that we stretch some of that snow potential from Kentucky all the way down to Mississippi. Let's keep moving forward, though. As we get into the 27th, we got 2 things happening. We got a clipper coming through the northern tier of the United States, but a bigger piece of that shortwave trough comes down here into the Gulf, and we're going to be possibly kicking off a low that goes racing up the East Coast. So this is why I'm watching the 27th. See it go there? Through the 28th and into the 29th for another big nor'easter. So very, very active pattern. As you saw here, we got a system coming through, once every 3 or 4 days, and behind him, bitterly cold air and very windy conditions. So in terms of total accumulated precipitation here, we can just see the influence of the system coming through in that area. That's going to be a lot of snow, I think. I'll take a look at our snow potential in a few seconds here, but some snow here on Tuesday into Wednesday. Heavy rains, though, here in the south. Remember, though, possibly looking at a switch over to some snow after the colder air comes in. If I had to pick a place that it's drier than average, it's right back into this area. And that's because the preferred storm track, again, we got clippers coming in like this. We have the system starting on Monday, going to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday like that. And then on the 27th and 20th, we're watching that system coming out of the south like that. So we got multiple systems to be paying attention to here. Now, coming back to snow, what do we see here? Well, we see the potential here for 3 inches. So I'm talking here about the probability of over 3 inches of snow. So the system that emerges here on Tuesday, potentially bringing in some snow to that area. Certainly, the Great Lakes states on the downwind side here of the Great Lakes, lots of lake effect snow. And because each one of these systems keeps meeting in the northeast, we are just going to be getting lots of snow up there as well. But here on the higher plains, it looks like pretty decent chance that over the next week or so we see at least an additional 3 inches of snow throughout much of that area. But before I get off of this map, I just want to show you one last thing. You can see that the European ensemble does get that quick changeover as each one of these systems comes through, possibly bringing snow not only from the Ohio River Valley, but getting through Kentucky, Tennessee, maybe down into Mississippi and Arkansas as that colder air sneaks in behind those lows. So that is the potential for our snow. Now, let's take a turn here to South America. And I've been talking about this drier pattern that's been in place. We can see that over the next 15 days, the European ensemble says, hey, drier than average, or we're keeping things wet in Argentina. Now, the question is, what is this doing to the early soybean yields? And does it matter because of the wetter conditions in Argentina maybe picking up the slack? Remember, a year ago, we were talking about drought in Argentina. Well, let's take a look at what the precipitation anomalies have looked like, starting off in Mato Grosso. Since the beginning of December here, we've picked up about 8 inches in deficit. That's what that is. That's 200 millimeters that we've missed out on here. So Mato Grosso, relatively dry. We've lost about 4 inches or more in Mato Grosso do Sul, which is here. Now remember, it still rains, but the thing is it's less than average. If I come down here into parts of Paraná, which is this area, we picked up also about a 4-inch deficit. And again, it's still raining because the monsoon still flows in this direction. It's just less than climatological average. Where's it been wet? Well, come down here into parts of Cordoba, near Santa Fe, parts of Buenos Aires. And there we've picked up a surplus of precipitation. So that is the shape of things down in South America. I just want to tell you something. The dominant driver of the South American monsoon is the phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation, that whole tropical, flow pattern. And if we want to stay wet in Brazil, we got to hang out a lot in high amplitude phase 8, phase 1, and phase 2. That's way out here. Where have we been? Well, look, since the start of December, we've been kind of hanging out in phases, 3, 4, 5. We did get over briefly into phases 7, 8, but it was low amplitude. We went right back to the null phase, and we've popped out again into phase 4, and we're going to spin it in phase 5, 6, and 7. So if the model just keeps doing this, well, that's just not getting over into the wetter phases like phase 8, phase 1, and phase 2 for the Brazilian monsoon. So that's one of the major reasons why we keep seeing this drier pattern emerge. All right. To finish this up, next 5 days in Europe, we do see the other kind of region across the northern hemisphere that's cold. We're picking up in that cold pattern that's going to stay sustained for a big region there. And if you had to find one place where it's just scorching hot, look at these high temperatures on Monday for Australia. We've got most of the continent there above 100 degrees Fahrenheit in temperature, with only the southeast coast here not seeing those extreme temperatures. So I just want to give you this global perspective as we wrap up. So with that, though, I'll go ahead and finish up. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you look forward to our next update coming out on Thursday morning. Thank you.